What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Post Game Show podcast. We hope you're having a great Sunday evening. My name is Grant. Welcome to the show. I'm here with Matt, Tyler, and Evan, and we are very excited to get this show going. We have a lot of current events to talk about. Kind of a busy week in sports. Then we have a little bit of a start bench cut, basketball edition, and I think this is going to be the most exciting top 10 we've done. The top 10 sports cities in the United States. So I think this is going to be a really good show. No guests this week, but you can expect one next week. And make sure to follow us on everything as usual. Donate to our Patreon if you would like to. And other than that, unless anyone else has anything to say, let's get started. All right, Evan, you start us off. You left the cliffhanger last week.
All right, so you didn't listen last week. I posed the question that if you could have any position on any pro sport team, any pro sport there is, what would it be? It can either be athlete, non-athlete, whatever you want it to be, just a part of a pro sport. What would you pick and why? So what are your guys' thoughts?
Who wants to start?
I'll go first. If I had to pick, I would probably say a backup quarterback in the NFL. Now, the reason I say this is I just want to use Chase Daniel as a example here. Okay, this is a guy who's made 5 career starts. He's thrown 213 passes and has 7 career total touchdowns. He's made $34.3 million. To put it into perspective, that's $6.9 million per start, $4.9 million per touchdown. And for every pass that he's thrown, every single pass he's thrown is worth $157,381. He also just signed a deal in free agency, 3 years, $13 million with the Lions. If he plays that out, he's going to make $47.3 million being a backup. He has the best seat in the house every Sunday, holding the clipboard right on the sideline. I don't know. I don't think it gets much better than that. It would suck if you're Carson Wentz's backup, though. He gets hurt all the time. But in Chase Daniel's situation, I think that's a perfect situation.
Agreed, yeah.
All right, I'll go. So my answer kind of changed a few times since you posed that question last week. Mm-hmm. And then I remembered I saw a post, I think about a week after quarantine started, where Cristiano Ronaldo literally bought an island just so his family would be fine. And I'm thinking, man, I'd love to have as much money as him. So I want to be a star soccer player, man. Most famous sport in the world, maybe not America, but in the world, soccer, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? You're going to play in the World Cup. You're going to be playing in all of the Champions League. I think that's the most famous league. I don't watch enough soccer. And you know what? If you look at it that way, Cristiano Ronaldo, in the latest, research of how much he makes $93 million. That's how much he has. That's not how much he makes. He has $93 million right now. That's his net worth. I can just imagine everything I do with $93 million. I want to be Cristiano Ronaldo. If I'm going to be specific, I want to be that guy.
That's a solid answer. I do like that. I've heard that take before, yeah. Matt, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure, I'll go next. So like Grant, I've shifted between different ones, but I want to be a quarterback under Bill Belichick.
Oh, yeah, baby.
If I'm a part of a system like that, I'm going to succeed no matter what, okay? When Tom Brady got hurt, like a few years ago, Matt Castle came in and led the team to like a 10-5 or 11-5 record. Sorry. And Matt Castle's not even in the league anymore. So if he can take a quarterback like him and make him something great, then I want to go there.
It's a whole lot
of season, baby.
That's a whole lot of 2-yard checkdowns, Matt. Can you handle that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'll let my running backs do the work. I'm fine.
I like it, Matt. I like it. Well, with my pick, I was trying to figure out what an athlete, as far as an athlete position I wanted. But I thought maybe a non-athlete position that would be honestly super cool would be the equipment guy for an NBA team, NBA franchise. I mean, think about it. you might not be making millions of dollars, but you're, rubbing elbows with the top players in the league like Steph Curry, Kyrie, LeBron, Oladipo. I mean, you're ordering different kinds of shoes. You know what shoes are good or not. You get to travel with the team. And I just think that'd be a great experience. Sure, you got to deal with like the dirty laundry and all that, and jerseys and getting all that organized. But I just think working with these players, getting their there's some really cool shoes out there, and just being around the players would be cool. And you don't have to sweat that much either, so and work out. So
for sure, I like that question, man. I like that question a lot. I got a question for next week. We can start off the show like this next week too. If you could be on any sports team of all time, which one would it be?
That's a good one.
So we can save that one for next week. And let's get into our show, man. We'll start with some current events. And I originally didn't have this on the plans. I was telling Matt and Tyler before Evan got in here about it. And I don't know. I don't really have the greatest reaction on it, as probably most people do. But I got a report from ESPN saying that the NFL is considering giving higher draft picks to NFL franchises that hire head coaches and GMs who are a part of a minority. I think that's completely wrong, but you guys might have a different opinion. What do you guys think?
It's a very, it's a very tiptoe topic to talk about. I kind of I understand, what they're trying to do. I think that the current system, works well. With obviously the top picks, need to should go to the team that, had the worst record. And then also, you have to factor in trades and all that and getting draft picks from trades. And I don't know. I don't see a feasible way that could work.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't see any reason to change the current system.
No, I do agree with promoting, diversity in coaches and
absolutely,
whatnot, no doubt.
Yeah, but, I get where they're trying to get here. I support that. But you look and there's more and more coaches and GMs of minority throughout the league now than there ever has been. But to factor in, higher draft picks, I think that's totally irrelevant.
Exactly.
That's where I'm coming from.
If that's the case, every team's going to hire a coach or GM in a minority, because they want, more success for the team. And by doing that, they get higher draft picks. So I think that's totally irrelevant. I think if they did that, they'd lose a lot of fans and a lot of respect from people. So I'm with you guys. There's no need to change, what we already have.
The way I look at it is, that puts the ownership positions and a lot of organizations in a weird spot. Because like you said, there's still some organizations that have a lot of minorities in the higher-ups of an organization. But, ownership, let's say you're a struggling franchise. Let's take the Lions, for example. They decide to fire Matt Patricia at the end of the season. And you got one coach who's white, one coach of a minority. And you have in the back of your mind, like, wait, if we hire this coach, we might get a higher draft pick. But the other coach might be the better fit for the organization. And that's one thing that you shouldn't have to decide. That's the way I look at it. Yeah. You shouldn't have to decide based off of getting a higher draft pick because of the color of the guy's skin. So
yeah, race shouldn't be involved whatsoever in that kind of business.
So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up real briefly. It was definitely something weird. But Tyler, I'm going to give the floor to you. Let's talk about what you want to talk about.
All right. So there were some reports that came out this week that the Seahawks were flirting with trading Russell Wilson back in 2018 to the Cleveland Browns for the number 1 overall pick, which the Browns eventually used to draft Baker Mayfield with. So I kind of want to, first of all, it makes total, just nonsense to me. This is a guy who I think is one of the 2 to 3 best players in the entire league. He saves Seattle every year. That they don't have a good O-line. They haven't had a complete run game. Russell Wilson just now has gotten a couple decent receivers around him. Their defense hasn't been great the last couple of years, but yet you still see the Seahawks in it at the end every year. It leads them to a 10-win season just about every year in that tough division. And if I'm Russell Wilson, I'm not happy with the Seahawks organization for letting these stories, get out. Why? This is a player of his magnitude, shouldn't have to deal with this disrespect and whatnot. But I guess that leads me to this question for you guys. So what aspect of this is crazier? The Seahawks offering Russell Wilson to the Browns for the number 1 pick, or the Browns declining the offer?
I would say the Seahawks offering Russell Wilson, because I can see where the Browns were coming from. Because if I was in the spot that had to make this trade, I probably would have. But there's some people that, you see the potential of people like Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, all who are still young in their age. And you got quarterbacks in that draft too. None of them have really developed too crazily yet. You got Mayfield, Darnold, Allen, like people like that. And if you see the potential of that, like I'm not saying they'll be better than Russell Wilson, but you never know. The Seahawks wanting to replace Russell Wilson with a risk? Nah.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Seahawks were definitely more crazy in that situation because, honestly, like you said, the Browns, you can see where they're coming from because you don't know how good Baker's going to be because he was the obvious number 1 pick to a lot of people. And him and Wilson are similar players in that they're both short quarterbacks. They both have legs. They can run. But, yeah, Seahawks were definitely stupid for even offering that.
Yeah, and you also have to wonder, this was in 2018, just 2 years ago. So you got to wonder if they're still sort of planning ahead and scheming for potential sort of bumping them off the ship further on down the road. They're already starting to strategize on, potential buyers for Russell Wilson. And, he's already come out. Russell Wilson says, he's looking to play till he's 45. And with that, obviously, comes risks, of age. And so at some point, the Seahawks will have to, invest in their future, just as the Packers have clearly stated in the recent draft. And also, I don't know if you guys saw that Aaron Rodgers came out and said that he would love to stay with, the same team for his career, but right now the reality is sort of changing that might not be a possibility.
Yeah, I get where you guys are coming from, but Russell Wilson's only 31 right now. In 2018, he was 29. He's playing just as good as football as anyone else in the NFL right now. And I do agree that the Seahawks are crazy. Both aspects of it are crazy. But I'm going to have to disagree and say the Browns are crazier for declining this because when I look back at that quarterback class, there wasn't a consensus number 1 pick in that draft as far as the quarterbacks go. A lot of people, including myself, thought the Browns were going to take Sam Darnold with the number 1 pick. There was reports the day of the draft that John Dorsey was obsessed with Josh Allen, and then they end up going Baker Mayfield. So, why, like Grant kind of touched on, why take a risk, with a rookie quarterback? But at the same time, if you're the Browns, you've been a purgatory franchise for so long. You haven't had a solid quarterback in so long, and you're offered Russell Wilson and you turn it down. To me, that's just crazy.
You have to keep in perspective too what the coaching and front office structure was.
Awful.
It only makes sense that they would make that sort of decision, I guess.
Awful.
Now, would you guys trust Baker's potential right now, or would you rather have Russell Wilson?
Russell Wilson. I think Baker Mayfield is going to progress. I think Baker Mayfield is going to be a solid NFL quarterback. But you look at Russell Wilson, he elevates other players. Baker Mayfield's got Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper, Dave Njoku, Nick Chubb. Russell Wilson's number 1 receiver for the last 3 years has been Tyler Lockett. He finally has DK Metcalf. They finally bring in Greg Olson, but Russell Wilson elevates people. I don't see an MVP in Baker Mayfield's future. Maybe, but Russell Wilson plays at an MVP level every year, so that's an easy one for me. I'm a big Russell Wilson fan, though.
What do you guys think?
Well, I think I kind of agree with Tyler. Just with the weapons that even back in 2018 the Browns were acquiring, I think that was, Russell Wilson's a weapon himself.
Yeah.
And so I think that would just, that would have been like a win now, and I the Browns, they went with a sort of more long-term, well, not like long-term as in, I don't know. Like, I basically agree with Tyler. I think he would have been like a win now versus waiting on Baker to develop, and get to that point, hopefully, that he might be, a top tier, quarterback. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, I think the Browns have a win now roster. You look at their team, there might be 2 or 3 teams, but they're right there with every team in the league as far as their roster on paper.
Really, around that 2018 draft and that following season is when they really started to bring all those weapons on board.
Yeah.
For sure. This will be a nice little transition. And the Russell Wilson's teammate, Quentin Dunbar, and DeAndre Baker of the Giants just got charged for armed robbery this past week. And there's not much to debate about this. I feel like we're all on the same side. Armed robbery is bad. But why would an NFL player do this? That's my question I want to pose.
I was sort of just browsing different articles, and I just clearly, from what, the amount, I guess the worth of the things they were stealing is just like in perspective of, what they can earn as a player, I just don't see any value in committing that crime at all. As it shouldn't be, committed at all by any person, but specifically by these 2 individuals who are fortunate enough to play as a pro athlete. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I found a quote from Dunbar, actually. It was hours before he got arrested or was issued the arrest warrant. He held his first press conference since he joined the Seahawks as a draftee, and he said that you just want to feel wanted at the end of the day. I just hope to repay them with the way I carry myself as a person. So I don't really think he accomplished that.
No.
Yeah, I'm with that. There's not much other to say about it other than it's a bonehead move on their parts. You're making millions of dollars to play football. I don't know what they possibly could have been trying to rob people with. But I look at this. This will be 2 huge losses for both these teams because I'm sure there's going to be disciplinary actions. Dunbar recently acquired from the Redskins. More than likely going to be the Seahawks' number 1 or 2 corner. And then DeAndre Baker was first-round pick last year for the Giants. So, just idiotic actions is going to cost their team. So,
yeah, I agree with you guys. It was stupid. They're potentially throwing away their own careers as well as hurting their own teams. So,
$12,000 in cash and $25,000 in watches. Something they could have literally thrown out the window and not realized it was gone.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
It was really worth it.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of money, that moves us on to our next topic. We might have some disagreements here. Something I've paid attention to a lot in the last day, and it's gotten the mind or the attention of a lot of other people in the sports world. So Blake Snell, a pitcher of the Tampa Bay Rays, streams a lot on Twitch, and he got a question the other day saying, are you going to play this season? Like, why are you not going to play this season? If so, whatever. Because the MLB just recently announced that they have a proposal going to the Players Union saying that they want to start playing an 82-game season, no fans, but you're going to get a very reduced salary, and some of that will be a 50-50 split with your organization you're with. So at the end of the day, you're losing 50% of your actual salary and 25% of that. So Snell came out and basically said he's not playing. Even if they have a season, he's not going to play because he's risking his life to Corona outside with other people, which to some extent that's true. But he also said it's not worth that much money when you can look forward to next season and get paid what you're actually supposed to. And basically he's been the biggest advocate of this since the news broke out. A lot of people agree with this. A lot of people disagree with this. And I really wish this would have happened a week sooner. A week sooner. We could have asked Luke last week. But what do you guys think?
I'll go ahead and start. I understand the players want their money, but at the same time, the MLB is, facing reduced revenue at this time as well. No games and they can't have fans in the stands. But at the same time, I completely understand where the players are coming from. In their contract, there's an agreement that they're playing for this amount of money. And for teams to come at them and say, oh, you're going to get 50% reduced, 25% reduced, whatever. I can definitely see where they're coming from. But I don't know. I mean, that's a great question, to see what's going to happen, if there's going to be holdouts and, what other problems that's going to cause.
Yeah. I think that, to kind of add to what you said, Tyler, the owners approximately could lose $4 billion if they don't have any season at all. And annually they make a revenue of about $10.7 billion. That's a lot of zeros. But, on the players' side, they, first of all, they want to make sure that they're safe, and also as far as getting paid themselves, they see it as that they're going to get like around a 50% pay cut from the original proposal and agreement that they had with the league back in, I think, March on shared revenue. But, back to safety, the players obviously need to be concerned about their own health, but the owner should also take in consideration not only the players, but, the staff in the locker rooms, equipment managers, medical staff, stadium security, concession workers, field maintenance people. There's a whole chain of, people beyond the players who have to be considered. So I just think the owners need to be really careful and not to place the value of a dollar sign over a human life. So
exactly. But yeah, you guys pretty much covered it. But like you said, Tyler, I wouldn't agree to any less money than I signed for in my contract. And obviously there's not going to be a lot of these players, they signed their contracts before this coronavirus stuff happened. So, and there won't be like some sort of clause in there saying like, if a global pandemic happens, like you get this set amount of money. So I definitely see where all the players are coming from.
Yeah. Which after this, I could definitely see, maybe built into contracts now clauses like an act of God clause where you're subject to reduced revenue share in the event of a global catastrophe that limits the revenue of the league and ownership.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let me get on my soapbox for a minute because I have something about this that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And I was on Facebook yesterday, and I saw a post in one of the groups I was in, and this guy wrote an open letter to Blake Snell. And he basically said, and I'm going to just paraphrase pretty much what happened, was he said that he's been a policeman for 23 years, and he will always go to his job whether they ask him to or not. And Blake Snell, in pretty much one word, is selfish, because there are people that, deliver his Amazon packages, deliver him food, make the food when he goes to a restaurant, protects his neighborhood and the policeman, stuff like that. I almost left a comment on it. I decided it probably wasn't the best idea too, but the way I look at that, and I have all the respect in the world for policemen, healthcare workers, everybody out there that has to go to work every single day with this on their mind. But you got to think, with Blake Snell personally saying he's not going to play, he's not going to make money. That team is not going to pay him if he doesn't play a game. And I'm fairly certain there's a clause in there saying that he's not going to get paid. But the thing is he can afford to do that. The Rays organization as a whole, they're going to hurt. He won the Cy Young Award 2 years ago. But the thing is that he's deciding to do this because of his health. Yeah, money probably has a lot to do with it, but if this coronavirus stuff was not going on, and let's say that the season was canceled due to, something else. I can't think of anything that would be, canceling a season like this would. If something else were to cancel this season and he had to get reduced pay, but he didn't have to risk his life, I guarantee that opinion would change, because he has to go out and he has to play this baseball season with a thought on his mind is, I don't know where these players I'm playing against have been. I don't even know where my own teammates have been. If I get this coronavirus, the odds of me dying or having fatal things happening to me are very low, but the chance that it's there is enough to say, hey, this is scary. I mean, that's the way I think when I go out and get food. If I go out and I think, me being close to this guy, I could get the coronavirus and I could possibly, get the worst thing possible. But luckily, that hasn't happened to me or any of us or anybody that I know. The thing is using yourself as a policeman to call somebody selfish, you're still getting paid as much as you can. You're getting paid what you signed for. You're getting paid pretty much without any reduction because you're out doing your job just like anyone else is. If somebody's agreeing not to do their job because they don't want to get paid, you can't say anything to them. They're not going to get paid if they don't do their job. He's just trying to save himself from anything potentially happening.
And I mean, also, no matter if it's a pro baseball player or, any other person, there's an inherent risk of spreading it to your family too. And a lot of these baseball players are concerned about their families. And, and that aspect also affects whether or not, the MLB wants to sort of bring teams down to the spring training facilities or have, biodomes where they're basically isolated and play games. And, they don't want to be separated from the family and they care about their family's safety. So.
Absolutely. All right. So moving on, there was one other thing I want to talk about, something that surprisingly has gotten a lot of stuff with it here in the past few days. A lot of big name players at colleges have been transferring. A few off the top of my head, Matt Harms and Nogel Eastern of Purdue have both transferred. Harms to BYU, Eastern to Michigan. And one of the most exciting players in the entire nation, Mac McClung, decided he's going to transfer. And he hasn't decided yet, but I think the current rumor is he's going to Kentucky. So my question I want to pose, because this all stems from Matt Painter. He was on the Dan Dockett show, I believe, yesterday, and he was saying that, you might have been a Purdue Boilermaker at one point. You might have your degree from Purdue, but if you left, you're not a part of this organization or college, I'm sorry. And I think a lot of coaches might be on that same mindset, and some coaches might see it as, this player wants to get a better opportunity to go to the NBA. So where do you guys stand on there?
I see it good and bad in both sides. I think transferring is good for players, to get a better opportunity, if they weren't playing as much as they thought they would. And also, it could help schools who, don't get those top recruits, like schools, like Kentucky and Duke, who get all the 5-star recruits every year for basketball. Let's say a guy goes to Kentucky, doesn't play as much as he would. He's going to transfer probably to a little bit smaller of a school. It's probably still a decent D1 school, but it helps those programs. But overall, I do think it's bad for college basketball because, schools use a recruit and a scholarship on this kid to come in and, play for their program. And, and it's bad because, especially in today, kids transfer, if they don't start as a freshman, a lot of them, you see it all the time in basketball and football. And this causes, in my opinion, no stability or team chemistry whatsoever. That's why you see, Kentucky and Duke dominate every year, during the regular season. But when it comes to the tournament, Villanova and, some Big Ten teams in Virginia. You see these teams that have guys who have been there since they've been freshmen. And that's why they're in it at the end every year. They have that team chemistry. They have that stability. They have that experience, versus a Kentucky or Duke team where all of the players are either one and dones or they transfer because they weren't playing as freshmen. So overall, I think it hurts the game. I do see some good in it for players, I guess, but overall it hurts college programs, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Overall, it definitely hurts the sport. But like you said, for the player individually, a lot of times if you're a big-name college player, you're looking out for yourself. You're doing what's best for yourself. If you want to make it to the NBA, like if Nojel Eastern, he thinks he's going to make it to the NBA, maybe Purdue was not the best spot for him, even though I disagree. I don't think he's going to go to the NBA.
Neither do I.
But and like you said, schools like Kentucky, Duke, those are schools that a player wants to go to if they want to go to the NBA, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to see take Mason Gillis, for example. He went to Purdue. He had offers from Xavier, I think Louisville, and Purdue, and a few other big-name schools. But I think that he chose Purdue not to make it to the NBA, but because it was a good situation. He liked the coaching staff, close to home. If he wanted to make it to the NBA, maybe he goes to Louisville, because I think that that program might have a better system to take him where he wants to go. But like you said, overall, it definitely hurts the game. There's no team chemistry. Definitely hurts it.
Yeah, I personally just think that transferring is a weak move on the part of the player. I think no matter if you're, even if you're a top, college basketball player, you come into that. You chose that program for a reason, and just to say, oh, I want a better takeoff spot to launch my NBA career. I just look at from watching this Last Dance documentary, Scottie Pippen, and I can't even tell you right now the name of the college he went to, somewhere down in Arkansas, I believe. But that's not a big time college, and obviously Scottie Pippen turned out to be a big time player, but he didn't transfer, just because, he didn't. It was a smaller college. He could have said, "Oh, I want a better situation at a bigger college." No, he stayed there, and he fought, and he won games, and so I respect that end of things. Is just saying, "Oh, I'm looking, forward to the career and just trying to launch it at a better spot." Especially if you're worried about playing time.
Yeah.
If the coach is not giving you playing time, maybe you just aren't that good. You should work harder and convince the coach otherwise.
Yeah.
That's just my take on it.
Look at somebody like John Morant. He went to Murray State. Is that where he went?
Murray State, yeah.
Yeah, that's a real small college, real small market college. He could have transferred to Kentucky or Duke or one of these powerhouse colleges, but no, he stayed at Murray State and dominated, and now he probably would have won Rookie of the Year or will win it if they still do the awards later this year. So
I like the point you made, Tyler, about teams winning the NCAA championship that basically look more like a team rather than a bunch of good players around. And that's why Duke really didn't have much success whenever it comes to teams like Duke and Kentucky don't have much success when it comes to the tournament. And one team that came to mind right when you said that was the UConn from, I think, 2010 to 2014, around there. They won 2 championships, if I'm not mistaken, one with Kimba when he was a junior, and one with Shabazz Napier when he was a junior. So they might have been a runner-up that year. I think they won those both times. But, and that just shows their best player is an older guy and not a freshman. And, and both of those guys stayed at UConn all 3 years. They might have left for their senior year, but that still shows enough. That you're a team. And the thing is that UConn team, I didn't prepare for this, so I couldn't tell you anybody on the team except for Jeremy Lamb. Jeremy Lamb went to the NBA with Kimba. He's good, but he's not any superstar by any means. Nobody else on that team went to the NBA. It just depends on the player and what he wants to do in his future. And if you want to go to the NBA, go to Duke or Kentucky. you're not going to win a championship, but you'll be ready for the NBA. So I guess it just depends on what the player wants to do. So,
Yep.
All right. So I think that covers it just about for current events. So we're going to move on to something I'm pretty excited to see. We have a start, bench, cut segment. So what we're going to do is all four of us have 3 players currently in the NBA prepared for the other 3 people on the show. And basically, it's self-explanatory. We start one, we bench one, and we cut one. So, Tyler, you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I got one for Matt. So, Matt, start one, bench one, cut one. DeAndre Ayton, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Bam Adebayo.
All right, so I base this off of what I would do right now, and I would start Bam Adebayo. Averaged 16 and 10 this year before all this COVID-19 stuff happened. Was an all-star. He dominated. Super athletic, really good defender. I decided to bench DeAndre Ayton. 16 and 10 his rookie year averaged. Probably would have won Rookie of the Year if it wasn't for Luka. And was averaging 19 and 12 before the coronavirus stuff happened. And then obviously cut Jaren Jackson. I think he's a great player, one of the best young power forwards in the league right now, but he's not quite there yet. But he has tons of potential. So,
All right, good answer, Matt. Moving on to Grant. I think this is a tough one. Start one, bench one, cut one. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, De'Aaron Fox, and Ja Morant.
Man, you gave me the hardest one. Like I don't know what to do here because, like I said earlier, De'Aaron Fox is my favorite player of these 3, and it sucks. But the way I'm going to go, I'm basically going off of how they're playing now versus how I think they're going to be in the future. And I'm actually going to start Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think that right now, I think he's the best of the 3. Ja Morant, without a doubt, is having a phenomenal season. He's going to win Rookie of the Year. But right now, I think that Thunder team, aside from Chris Paul, this guy's the star. Averaging 19.6 rebounds and 3 assists. Those are good stats for a point guard. I mean, and his natural position's point guard, but he's been playing shooting guard, obviously, because Chris Paul's there. And I think he's just going to continue to grow, and he has high all-star potential. I'm not saying MVP potential, but high all-star potential. And Ja Morant's going to have to be who I bench. I think that, like I said, going to win Rookie of the Year. I think he's going to be the cornerstone of the Grizzlies for the next 10, 15 years. I don't see him winning an MVP ever either, but I think he's going to be a really good high all-star. And, you know, he's basically a Russell Westbrook 2.0. And I love watching him play. And sadly, going to have to bench De'Aaron Fox, but the more I looked at it, you know, he hasn't brought much success to his current team. And compared to the other 2, you got to bench him.
Cut.
Yep.
I like that answer. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is really what drove that Paul George trade to the Clippers, you know, along with the 80 first-round picks. But
Yeah.
I think he was a big part of that trade. All right, Evan. Luka Doncic, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. Start one, bench one, cut one.
Yeah, so as you'll see with all of mine that we do, I pretty much landed with a bunch of the superstars that, you know, dominate the league today. So I kind of had to figure out how I wanted to sort them out. And so I kind of, you know, as far as, you know, in order from start, bench to cut, I kind of thought about each player and how they would, you know, dominate the court, not only just as a player and among the other players in the court, but how they would bring their team with them and be clutch when it's time to be clutch. And so for Tyler's 3, I am starting Kawhi Leonard. I just see him as that super clutch guy. He's a low-key guy, and he's a fun guy. So I just really like him as a starting player, you know, and I just thought he did really, you know, I wasn't really familiar with him before last year's playoffs, but I really got to, you know, familiarize myself with him, and I just like him. Bench, I'm benching Paul George. I think he's a solid player. And not to say, you know, bench, he can still come in the game, but I just I just think he fits the bench spot better, especially with these three. And I'm cutting Luka. No doubt, he's a good player, but I had to cut somebody. So sorry, Luka, it's you.
All right. Good answers, guys. Moving on to Matt's.
All right. So I'll go ahead and start off with how you guys are on my screen. All right, I'll go Grant first. All right, so these are my three: Brandon Roy, Gilbert Arenas, and Penny Hardaway.
I like this one, man. Pretty much three guys. Like I'm sure you did this on purpose, but like could have had better careers that got injured. So it sucks. I think personally, I'm going to start Penny Hardaway. I think that the way that Magic team was going, if Shaq would have stayed, that could have been a dynasty. And Penny Hardaway was a big part of that. And, it's really hard to say without actually seeing the rest of his career play out. But Penny Hardaway had all the tools. And I think that he's still a household name even after having a big chunk of his career taken off and that's not being the same player. So I'm going to start Penny Hardaway. I'm going to bench Gilbert Arenas. I think whenever he was on the court, he was a different player. And I always enjoyed watching him. He carried that Wizards team. I mean, he had Antoine Jamison, I think, but that's basically it. And he was just a really good player, really good shooter, really explosive. Speaking of explosive, the gun thing that he did, that was funny. And I'm going to have to bench Brandon Roy. Obviously a crazy player with the Trailblazers, but I think that it was one of those things where maybe he had like a couple of years of stardom. Obviously he got hurt, and that's probably the main reason why he never returned to being the same player, but he tried it with a couple other teams, didn't work out, and I just think the other two had more potential if they would have stayed healthy. So that's my three.
Nice. I like that. All right, Tyler. Nikola Vucevic, Domantas Sabonis, and Steven Adams.
I'm going to go ahead and start with my cut on this one because it was pretty easy. I'm going to go Steven Adams. Other two guys have been all-stars. Not that I'm just basing it off all-stars appearances, but definitely think Steven Adams is the worst out of these three. For my bench, I'm going to go Nikola Vucevic. This one was kind of hard, but if it's right now, I think Sabonis is on the rise. Vucevic still playing at a high level. In 2019, he was averaging 19.5 and 11 with 3 assists a game. But I look at Sabonis, first-time All-Star this year, 18.5 points a game, 12.5 boards, 5 assists. He's a big man that can really do it all. Extremely efficient from the floor, 54% from the field. I think he's just going to continue to get better like he has every single season in his career so far, and he's going to be a cornerstone piece for the Pacers for years to come. So my start is Sabonis, bench, Vucevic, cut, Steven Adams.
Love it. So Sabonis is my guy. I'm a huge Pacers fan. So, all right, Evan, Kyrie Irving, Damian Lillard, and Kemba Walker.
Right. So I'm going to start with my cut. To me, I think for me it was pretty clear who I was going to cut, and that's Kemba Walker. No doubt that he can play ball, but I just haven't seen enough impressive moments of him, enough clutch moments. Just personally, as a fan myself and what I've seen, I just haven't seen that out of him. I'm benching Kyrie Irving. I hate to disappoint any Celtics fans out there. Not going to name any names, but I don't know. I definitely think he was definitely a startable player in this category when he was in Cleveland, but I just really haven't seen a lot of production, Celtics. And he's on the Nets now, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. I completely messed that up with the Celtics thing. So, yeah. That should be out to the NBA. But, yeah, so I just think currently not as good as me starting Damian Lillard. Just a phenomenal basketball player. I go back to the playoff game. I believe it was against Oklahoma City when he hit that dagger to end the game. And that look in the camera, that was just awesome.
Puts chills down your spine, man.
It does.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I was kind of looking for, that clutch moment right there.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely a better basketball player than rapper. He's pretty mediocre at that.
Yeah, all right. Great answers. I definitely agree with all of you on what you said. So,
All right. So I will go, and I'm going to go in the order of my screen too. So, Evan, I'm going to start with you. I could have put Kevin Durant in here. I should have. But, all right, I have James Harden, Steph Curry, and Russell Westbrook. Start bench cut.
Yeah, so right off the bat, I'm just cutting James Harden. Like, I'm not down with anything that I see from him. I just despise seeing him on the court playing. I mean, there's just something about him. Like, yeah, he'll hit a big shot, and then he won't play defense. I mean, not impressed as a fan. And a lot of people will probably have strong opinions about this, but I'm benching Russell Westbrook. No doubt. I mean, he's a skillful player, but, he hasn't led a team to anything. And now he's sitting there with James Harden, and they're not doing anything. So end of the day, I just see Steph Curry as the apex of the three. He was winning games before, the big group they had out there when they went on their, big championship run and all that, so I just see him more as a team player. Obviously he does take his own shots. He's very skillful, but I just see him more as a, team guy and clutch guy compared to Russell Westbrook and James Harden.
For sure. I agree with that. Tyler, sorry for giving you all the centers, but I am excited to see what you say about this, mostly because you look like Nikola Jokic. But Joel Embiid, Karl Anthony Towns, and Nikola Jokic.
Man, this was a really tough question, to be honest with you. I think these are three of, if not the best three centers in the entire NBA. But I took it off of, who's the most skillful, in my opinion. If I'm picking one to, go play right now, who would I pick? So I would start Karl Anthony Towns. The reason I say that is I think he's a highly more efficient offensive player than the other two. Jokic is as well, but, Anthony Towns can create his own shot. He's 7 foot. He can shoot outside extremely well. And he's just dominant. I mean, he's the only guy, he's like a walking 25 and 12. I mean, the dude's, before the season obviously ended with the corona, he was averaging 26 and a half, 11 rebounds, and 4.5 assists, shooting over 50%. Just highly skillful player. I think he's the most talented overall center in the NBA right now. For my bench, I'm going with Joel Embiid. I think he's the most, other than Giannis, but, out of these three, he's obviously the most dominant on the interior. He creates a mismatch, with just about anyone down in the paint. He's another guy, very good on offense, very good on defense, averaging 24, 12, and 3, shooting right under 50%. So, he's my bench. And then it was tough, but I'm going to cut Nikola Jokic. He's one of those centers that he has a very nice all-around game. But, I don't think he's as dominant as the other two. He does have that, he averages more assists a game, and he can shoot outside as well. But like I said, I just think the other two are more skillful.
I would have went the same exact way you did, but I just want to mention Nikola Jokic, best passing big man I think I've ever seen. It's awesome to watch him pass. And
Absolutely.
I was curious to see if you'd put him up there, but I wouldn't have either. So, Matt, I had a pretty interesting one for you. I like the way this is, and I'm excited to see where you go with it. So, start, bench, cut, Lou Williams, Derrick Rose, and Montrezl Harrell.
all right. So this one for me was really tough. These guys are the best sixth men in the league right now. Even though two of them are on the same team, they're both sixth men. So I'm going to start with my cut. If we're going right now, I will cut Derrick Rose. He's getting up there in age. He's 31. He's not that old, but he's getting up there. Obviously, as we all know, he's injury prone. He's missed numerous games due to injury. Missed a whole season for an ACL tear. But I mean, he's balling out. He was averaging 18 points a game before this coronavirus stuff happened for the Pistons. So, I mean, he's definitely a solid player, but it was tough, definitely tough to put him there. All right, with my bench, I'm actually going to decide to bench Lou Williams. So here's my reasoning. He's getting older. He's 33. Sorry. He averages a lot of points, yes, but he's not a stellar defender. He's not obviously not a rebounder. He's a 6'1" shooting guard. So other than scoring, he doesn't bring a ton to the table, but I still think he's a stud, best sixth man in the league, in my opinion. But I will have to start Montrezl Harrell because he is a young big man in the league, averaged 16 and 9 last year. And before this coronavirus, I was averaging 18 and 7 off the bench. So that's definitely a really good stat line. For some reason, they're not starting him. They're starting Zubats, or however you say his last name, in LA. But he's definitely a stud. I think he's going to be one of the top big men here in a few years.
Harrell's a free agent after this year. He's going to get paid.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Evan, finish us off.
All right, so let me pull it up here. All right, so I'm going to start with Tyler. Tyler, Anthony Davis, Kyle Lowry, or Klay Thompson? Start, bench, cut.
Yeah, I'm going to start Anthony Davis. I think he's one of the top 5 players in the whole league. So that one was pretty easy. For my bench, I'm going to go Klay Thompson. I think he's one of the most polished offensive players in the league. You know, he can get you a three-pointer anytime, anywhere. You know, and he has that, you know, championship pedigree, multiple rings. So, and I'm going to cut Kyle Lowry, solid player, and he's been the face of that, Toronto franchise for a long time. But I think the other two are better players. So,
all right, solid. Next is Grant. Jimmy Butler, Ben Simmons, and Mike Conley. Start, bench, and cut.
This was kind of tough. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to start with my cut. Mike Conley, it was kind of a clear one for me. I like Mike Conley, but never been an all-star. He's just kind of always been one of those point guards that does, like, just the dirty work in a way. Like, he'll make the right passes. He'll make a big shot here and there. But that Grizzlies team that he was on honestly will go down as maybe one of the best teams to never win a ring, in my opinion. Because they just really they had a really solid team. But Mike Conley was a big part of that. But right now with the Jazz, he was having a terrible year this year. And compared to the other two, I just don't think he's as good. And I am going to bench Ben Simmons, I think. I love Ben Simmons. He's actually one of my favorite players. But this year, he wasn't that great. And that Sixers team was honestly contending to be one of the best teams in the East. And they have really underperformed. And, everyone gives them flack for not having a jump shot. And I kind of have to put that into effect here. I think that, if I'm taking a player right now, sure, Jimmy Butler has a lot of age on him, but I'm starting Jimmy Butler. I think he has the best mentality of a player in the entire league. He wants to win more than anyone. I think this might be a bold statement, but I think he's the closest to Michael Jordan as far as mentality goes as anybody in the league. And I think that I think any team would be lucky to have him. And he took a team that wasn't even in the playoffs last year, and they're now considered a dark horse finals candidate. So I'm going to start Jimmy Butler.
You think closer than LeBron?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's fair. Yeah, I definitely agree with those for sure. All right, Matty D.
Yes, sir.
So I have Avery Bradley, Jason Tatum, and your boy, Victor Oladipo. Start, bench, and cut.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and get the cut out of the way. I'm going to cut Avery Bradley. He's solid defender, but he's not anywhere close to these other two as far as skill or anything else. Now, here's where it got tough because Oladipo, he's my boy. But he just came off of injury. So right now, I think I'm going to have to bench my boy Vic.
That's fair.
He's had a great year last year, or 2 years ago, pardon me. But then he got hurt, spent a lot of time off came back, played like 13 games, I think, was averaging like 13 points on limited minutes. So if we were talking right now, I would not take him over Jason Tatum. I'm going to go ahead and start Jason Tatum. Was having a great season this year, averaging almost 24 points, was an all-star. Was he an all-star starter? I can't remember.
Tatum?
Yeah, Tatum.
He was a reserve.
Yeah, reserve. Okay.
Yeah.
Still, was an all-star this year, having a stellar season. He's a great young player, so I decided to start Jason Tatum.
I'll tell you what, though, once Victor Oladipo gets back on his feet, in my opinion, that I think with his previous seasons,
Absolutely.
That start category, because I was at his return game back in, I think it was like February.
Yeah.
And he hit that last second shot, and I just because he had a bad game the whole game.
He did.
This dagger he hit. It just gives me excited for the future.
I was watching it with my dad, and when he hit that shot, I jumped up and literally screamed. I was so excited.
I screamed video I took.
Yeah. But yeah, if he wasn't injured, he'd definitely be my starter. But because he's coming off an injury, I put him on the bench.
Right.
All right. I think that was really interesting to watch, see your guys' answers. There's a lot of different directions we can go with that. So I think that's something that I'm always excited to hear, whoever it is. So that moves us into our top 10 list of the week. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I think this is going to be our best one yet because there's no obvious number one pick. We have our top 10 sports cities in the United States. So I'll just give you a quick rundown of how I did my criteria. You guys can chime in if you did anything different. But basically, I did mine off of championships, overall success as all of the sports teams in that city, the amount of sports teams that city has, the free agent appeal in certain sports, the fan base in the sports, and I even factored in, the big names that have played there in that city. And I think that this could go a number of ways with everybody, just depending on how you did yours. But I'm excited to see what everyone says.
Yeah, I would say I structured mine pretty similarly, yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is just market size. But other than that, you covered everything. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll start us off. So go in the order on my screen. If that's fine, we'll go me, Evan, Tyler, Matt.
Sounds good.
So starting with number 10. And this was honestly the hardest one for me because it was hard for me to get the teams on the bubble. I had 9 teams that were for sure going to be on there, and that 10th one I wasn't sure. But I went ahead and went with Miami. I think that they don't have an NHL team. That's the only thing that they don't have. But the other sports that they have, they're just solid. The Heat team, usually a pretty good team. They have 3 championships as a whole. The Marlins, they were formerly the Florida Marlins, but now they're the Miami Marlins. They have 2 championships in their history, and the Dolphins also have 2 championships in their history. So nothing to put them any higher. But I think compared to the other cities I was thinking of, they had more success. And what free agent doesn't want to go to Miami?
It's true. Yeah. So starting off at my number 10, I had to go with the city closest to us with Indianapolis. I just think overall Indianapolis is a great sports venue, good market. We got two big teams here, the Colts, Pacers, both with pretty strong fan bases, rich history in both organizations. We have the Indianapolis Indians, it's a farm team for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Great atmosphere, and honestly, Indianapolis itself it's a good venue to host sporting events, as we've seen Big Ten tournaments, Super Bowls, other championships, soon to be the NBA All-Star Game, Final Fours. And so I definitely think it deserved a top 10 spot. So.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Dallas. The reason Dallas made it over some of the other teams is just how big of an influence the Dallas Cowboys have. They're, I think, one of, if not the biggest football brand in America. They're America's team. But, in addition, the Dallas Mavericks, they've been a very good NBA franchise, forever. And they also have an NHL team as well. No baseball team, but I believe. Is that right?
I think the Rangers play there.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
So they have a baseball team too. So they're a 4-team,
Hockey.
a 4-team city. So that's really what, weighed that, into account. So Dallas at 10.
Oh, it was me. Sorry. So my number 10, I went with Evan. I put our hometown big city, Indianapolis. Like you said, it's a great place to host big events. The Final Four has been here. The Big Ten tournament, like you said, the Super Bowl. We're going to have the NBA All-Star game, and it's all centrally located. You got Bankers Life downtown, and then you go down the road a little bit, and there's Lucas Oil down the road. So, yeah, that's why I put Indy at number 10.
I should have put Indy on there, but I went more towards championship success. That was my main thing. But it was hard not to put Indianapolis on there. I love Indianapolis. We all grew up going there. But number 9, this was a really weird one. I had to put it on there just because of how many championships they have. I have St. Louis. They only have 2 sports teams. The Cardinals have 13 championships as an MLB franchise, and the Blues have 2. And the Blues, honestly, have been one of the better NHL franchises here as of late. They're really fun to watch. I know probably no one watching this podcast right now watches hockey, but I do. And they also had the St. Louis Rams at one point. They won a championship, I believe, when Kurt Warner was there. And they also – believe it or not, had the Hawks before the Atlanta Hawks did, and they had a championship there too. So basically the way I look at it is the Cardinals and the Blues have a really good fan base, and they obviously have some success with both teams. And, they I don't think they deserve to lose the NFL team, but they did, and now L.A. has it. And it's kind of weird. Just like a few years ago, L.A. didn't even have a football team. Now they have 2. But, yeah, so St. Louis is my number 9.
Yeah, with my number 9, I just want to point out that in the time we've started this segment, I've changed my list like 5 times. But with my number 9, I have to go with a city that's, I think, pretty close to is Nashville, Tennessee. I think just, there's not a lot of championships obviously being won there right now. I definitely think the Titans are on the rise. I think they're a growing organization in their skill and talent. And there's also a great organization of the Nashville Predators that are there. There's a great farm team there. I'm not sure for what team, but the Nashville Sounds. They have a beautiful AAA venue, fun atmosphere. And obviously there's a lot to do in Nashville as a fan coming there to visit. They've shown they can host events. I believe what I've heard that the Nashville Draft was one of the most popular out of all like the traveling draft sites. So that's why I think Nashville deserves number 9.
For my number 9, I have Washington, D.C. The reason why is, they're another, of the main 4 sports. They're a 4-team city. The nation's capital. We got Washington Wizards, the Washington Redskins, the Nationals. They obviously also have a hockey team. So all those teams, that haven't had great success in the most recent years, but I just think, when you look at Washington, D.C., it being the nation's capital, I think it deserves a spot on the list.
So at my number 9, I went Dallas, mainly because they have a sport in each of the 4 popular ones. The Mavericks, like Tyler said, have been a solid team forever. The Cowboys are America's team. Everybody, when you think of football, you think of the NFL, you probably think of the Cowboys. And then the Rangers, they were like a strike away from beating the Cardinals in the World Series a few years ago. But, David Freese had something to say about that. And then they got the Dallas Stars in hockey. The big city, my parents have been there. I've not been there, but they said it's a beautiful city. So, yeah, I put Dallas at my number 9.
All right, number 8, I have Philadelphia. Obviously, a city known for their sports, and it's kind of hard putting somebody down there or a city down there that has a lot of diehard fans. But team success isn't there. The Eagles won their last championship in 2018, but before that, their last championship was in 2008 with the Philadelphia Phillies. And with their teams, honestly, all of them are mediocre. The Eagles, usually a team right there in the middle. The Flyers are consistently in the middle, hardly ever make the playoffs. The 76ers obviously are getting better, but we still haven't seen anything in the playoffs from them. And the only team I'm missing is the Phillies. Yeah, and they've gotten better, but they haven't done anything since they had Ryan Howard, Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, and those guys. They got Bryce Harper, though, so that's definitely a plus. But, as a team, all those teams are just mediocre, but they do have a good fan base, and they have a decent championship history past 2000. So I had to put them at 8.
Yeah, so my number 8, I decided to go with Seattle. I've personally, Seattle's one of the cities on this list that I've been to. I love Seattle. I would go back in a heartbeat if someone told me, let's get on a plane, but we'll avoid the coronavirus. It's a great city, a lot of things to do if you're visiting as a fan before and after the game. A lot of good places to visit, eat, drink. Obviously, some great sports organizations there with the Seahawks. I honestly wish they would get another NBA team. I think it'd be really cool to see a team up there to replace the Supersonics hole. They got the Mariners, University of Washington. So I just think it's a good city for sports. So I think that's why it deserves 8.
For my number 8, I have Pittsburgh. Obviously, as much as I hate to say it, they have one of the best, football organizations, and they always have, throughout the history of football. They're one of the best run organizations. Obviously they have the Pittsburgh Pirates as well. No basketball team, but they also have a hockey team. And, I think this is a city that's had great success in sports, which is ultimately why I have them at number 8.
All right, so for my number 8 spot, I went Philadelphia as well. Like you said, mainly because of the fan base. They've got a ton of diehard fans over there in Philly, even though, like you said, their teams are all mediocre. Plus, Rocky was based in Philadelphia. So, yeah, I put Philadelphia at my number 8 spot.
All right, well, I'm staying in the same state, and I'm going with Pittsburgh. Kind of like Tyler said, I hate to say it, but the Steelers have, I think, if not one of the best fan base in the entire NFL. I mean, you see those stupid towels even at away games, and it sucks. But the Pittsburgh, I think, as a city, they're one of those cities that have 4 different sports, and they're all basically, oh, sorry, they only have 3 sports. They don't have an NBA team. But they have 3 sports, and they're all very solid. No NBA team moves them down on my list. But the Penguins are personally my favorite hockey team, solely based on the fact that I love Sidney Crosby. And they have 5 championships themselves. Steelers have 6. Pirates have 5. All of those teams have diehard fans, and you'll see opposing teams at different ballparks. So that's why I have them even on my list. And a lot of people consider PNC Park, the Pirates Park, one of the best ballparks in the league. And Lincoln Financial is considered one of the hardest places to play in the NFL. So I think that will be a little bit of a factor for me.
Yeah, for my number 7, I have Cleveland. Myself, Tyler, and Grant, us 3, along with our friend of the show, Carter Brown, have been there for a Browns game. And, it was cold. It was miserable by the lake.
I had shorts on.
Yeah. But honestly, just the atmosphere of being with the other fans of that city and their, of their football team, which at the time wasn't the greatest, and still not up there, but just their energy and passion as fans that they go out there in 20-degree weather by the lake and sit through an 0-16 season. And they also have it's the home of LeBron James, Cleveland Cavaliers. They got the Indians. I don't know if they have a hockey team or not, but I just definitely think a good blue-collar sports city for sure. That's why I think they're number 7.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Evan. Definitely some diehard Browns fans in Cleveland. For my number 7, I'm going with Miami. Something that highly influenced them being high on my list was, just, appeal to players. I mean, who doesn't want to go play in Miami? And, obviously the Dolphins, been bad recently, but they've had great success in the past, back in the day with Dan Marino and other guys like that. Obviously the Miami Heat, multiple championships with LeBron and D Wade and those guys, they've been a solid franchise. Obviously the Miami Marlins as well, in baseball, they I don't believe they have a hockey team, but overall their 3 sports teams, very solid team success over the years, and market size and appeal to the players. That's really what influenced them being number 7.
All right, so my number 7, I have a city that I don't know if you guys will have them on their list. I don't know. I kind of threw them in there. It's Houston, Texas. So they've got the Texans, Rockets, and the Astros as their big time city teams. But they've also got the Houston Roughnecks, the XFL. They're pretty fun to watch, even though the XFL is not going to be around anymore. And also, I think a team that everyone sleeps on is Houston University football. They have some success. Case Keenum, he went there and dominated. But yeah, it's a big city. It's a great city to be in, and got a lot of teams with a lot of success. So,
all right, number 6. I think this is where it might get a little tricky as far as our order goes. But I have Detroit at number 6. I think they have the most legendary franchise in NHL history. The Detroit Red Wings have 11 championships. Consistently pretty good here of late, not really, but they have 11 championships, and their other sports teams pretty good as well. The Pistons have 3 championships, 2 with the Bad Boys, 1 with that team of thugs, Chauncey Billups, Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace. That was a fun team. And then they had 4 with the Tigers. A lot of them were probably before anybody watching this podcast were born, but they have a lot of good championship success. But they're ghost towns at games. Like, I've never seen a Pistons game filled. Like, I watch a lot of Pistons games just because, I like to gamble on sports, and I'd never seen a game there that actually has fans there. And I think the Red Wings get a better support than any team there, even the Lions. So they can't go any higher than 6, but based off championship success and literally no free agent appeal at all, because who would want to go play in Detroit, they're at 6.
Yeah, for my number 6, I probably have – it's definitely not the biggest city in terms of size for being a sports city, but I have Green Bay, Wisconsin, just solely because of the Packers franchise and their rich history with that city and its population, and just how diehard Packers fans are. And I just really think they deserve the number 6 spot.
For my number 6, I had Philadelphia. I feel like this is one of the best sports cities in America. They're a 4-team sports city, with hockey, basketball, baseball, and football. The Eagles, pretty consistent franchise throughout their history. 76ers definitely on the rise. They're definitely dominating recently. Obviously they have the Phillies as well, and then they also have a hockey team. So that's ultimately what led them to being my number 6.
all right. So at my number 6 spot, I put San Francisco / Oakland. I guess you can put them in the same category. I think.
Bay Area.
Yeah, the Bay Area. So not many teams, but they've got the San Francisco Giants in the MLB, who have been very successful. 8 championships, I believe. And then in the NBA, the Golden State Warriors. Not this past year, but before that, powerhouse in the NBA. Steph and Clay, they took that. And Kevin Durant took them to 3 championships. Not Kevin Durant, but Steph and Clay. Just dominated the NBA. And I think after this year, getting a number 1 pick, getting Clay back after being injured, I think they're going to return to that dominant play. So I put San Francisco/Oakland, the Bay Area, at number 6.
Definitely. All right, into the top 5. I have Chicago at number 5. Bulls, one of the most legendary franchises, not even in the NBA, but of all time, based on Michael Jordan. They have 6 championships. The Cubs only have 2. As much as I dislike that franchise, they have a lot of diehard fans, especially in Indiana. White Sox have 3. They're the forgotten franchise there, and it's cool that they have 2 baseball teams. And the Blackhawks, a decent NHL team all throughout the entire history of that franchise. They have 4 championships as a whole. And the Bears have 1, but that's only in the modern era. I didn't know this till today. They have 8 Super Bowl championships before the Super Bowl was officially the Super Bowl. So they just have 8 championships in total, but they have 1 here in the modern era. But the reason why they're so high on my list, because I honestly was going to put them lower than Detroit. Every single one of their teams have diehard fans, not only in Chicago. You got fans probably out in Nevada and California and stuff that are diehard Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks fans. And another thing that went into my factors, Wrigley Field and United Center, 2 very iconic stadiums to play in, whether you're a home or visitor in that arena. So Chicago is my number 5.
Yeah, with my number 5, I put Boston, Massachusetts. Obviously one of the toughest, not really toughest, but most dedicated fan bases between their sports. You have the Boston Celtics, you have the Bruins, you have the New England Patriots, and you have the Red Sox, which I think are both legendary organizations in their own right. The fan bases are very strong, as we see with one of our own members here, who's a member fan from Indiana of the Patriots. And obviously we know some Celtics fans personally. So obviously Boston sports has a larger range, and that's why they're number 5 for me.
My number 5 is New York. I know New York is, probably the biggest market, in the United States. They have the appeal for players to want to play there. But I mean, the success of their teams is just not there. The New York Knicks, obviously, I mean, they're a laughing stock of a franchise. They do have 2 football teams with the Jets and the Giants. Giants, they won 2 Super Bowls with Eli. The Jets, very laughable as well. They also have 2 baseball teams as well. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yankees
Yep.
and Mets. So, and then they also have a hockey team. So, they have 6 sports teams out of the 4, main sports, which ultimately led them, for me, having them at number 5. The reason they're not higher on my list is because of the lack of team success, So that's the reason why they're number 5.
All right, so my number 5, I put Pittsburgh, mainly because of their football team's success. The Steelers, as much as we may hate the fan base, have a really good fan base, and they have dominated the game of football. And then, like you mentioned earlier, Grant, Sidney Crosby, one of the best hockey players ever, made his career with the Pittsburgh Penguins. So that's why I have them in my number 5 spot.
All right. Number 4, I have Los Angeles. I think that's probably a little lower than most lists would have. But, they're still a great city to play in. You got the Lakers winning 5 championships since the year 2000. And that right there just shows they have the recent success. But they've had their down years. And the way I look at it is the Clippers here recently have had their best years ever as a franchise. But other than that, since they've became a franchise, really no success. To my knowledge, they don't even have a playoff series win yet. The Kings are a really good hockey team. They have 2 championships since 2000. I think that they are probably the best appeal as far as a United States-based hockey team goes to many free agents, just because of the appeal of Los Angeles. But the way that I look at it and the why they're so low on my list compared to the other big markets is they don't have as much team success as the other big names do, because you got the Dodgers and the Angels. Literally, they haven't had a championship. Either of them have in a long time. The Kings, they are actually the most recent LA team to get a championship, to my knowledge, if I'm not mistaken. And the Rams and Chargers both have had down years as an LA-based team. Both teams haven't been there for that long, and they haven't had success. The Rams obviously made a Super Bowl, but they didn't win it. And Lakers, Clippers, obviously, I've already touched on. So I think Los Angeles is more of a tourist attraction rather than a hard place to play for opposing teams. So I have them at number 4.
Yeah, for my number 4, I have New York. Kind of follow along with Tyler. They have, the Brooklyn Nets, the Knicks, the Rangers, Yankees, Jets, Giants. Am I forgetting any? The Mets. So they have a lot of sports teams, obviously, with historic success, maybe not so much in the current day. It's a huge city. There's a lot to do there if you're visiting as a fan or you live there as a fan. They're very passionate about their sports as they boo their teams off the field. So I think that's why they deserve number 4.
My number 4, I have Chicago. Obviously, the main reason that they're so high on my list is because of Michael Jordan, pretty much. 6 championships with the Bulls. Obviously the Bears are a historic NFL franchise. They've been a pretty solid franchise for years. They have that tough, gritty mindset, the Bulls and the Bears do. When you think of stadiums you want to visit in the NFL, I think Soldier Field's pretty high on just about anyone's list. Obviously the 2 baseball teams with the Cubs and the White Sox, so that obviously had high influence. They also have a hockey team as well. So, you look at that and that's, 5 teams in the 4 major sports, which is, pretty big, and obviously they have one of the bigger markets in the United States. I think a lot of players would like to play in Chicago as well, just because of the history. And like we said, the big market as well. So.
Yeah, so I also put Chicago at my number 4, basically for all the reasons you guys said. If it weren't for Michael Jordan, I don't know if they'd even be on my list, to be honest. But like Grant said, they have the Chicago Cubs. They have one of the most loyal fan bases. Since we're in Indiana, we don't have an MLB team here, but it seems like everybody is a Cubs fan. I don't know why, but everyone chose the Cubs around here pretty much. But, yeah, and then the Blackhawks, solid hockey team. So, yeah, I put them at my number 4.
All right, number 3, I have the Bay Area, San Francisco, and Oakland. Right now, they don't have as much success as the top-tier teams on my list. But, as recent success goes, I think they're just as high as anybody. The Warriors, one of the best franchises of the 2010s, without a doubt, if not the current 2000 and on. And I think they're going to only continue to get better. Like Matt said earlier, they're going to probably rebuild and be even a better team next year with the number 1 pick, free agents. You never know. But 3 championships here in the last few years, and they had a really good Warriors team back in the day with Mullen and Richmond and Tim Hardaway. Other than that, you got the San Francisco Giants, one of the most legendary MLB franchises in the league. And the 49ers, obviously. You can't forget about the 49ers. Almost won a Super Bowl last year. Probably should have won a Super Bowl last year. But they didn't. They've made 2 Super Bowls in the last few years. Lost both of them, but it just shows the success that organization has. They don't have an NHL team. They used to, the California Golden Seals back in the 60s. But they're not there anymore. And other than that, man, I just look at this as a loyal fan-based city. You see the Giants, I think, if I'm not mistaken, have the best attendance of any MLB team in the league. Warriors, you never see a game without an empty seat because that team, even with, players like Jordan Poole and players like that starting this year, they still sold out their arena. So I think that would be a place anyone wants to play too. You're in California, you got good weather. So they got to be my top three. So I had them at number 3.
Yeah, my number 3, I'm not going to go too much into detail because, you guys already covered it with Chicago at number 3. For me, great success of Michael Jordan with the Bulls, the Cubs, the White Sox, the Bears.
The Bears.
It's a great place to visit, fan or, you live there and you're a fan of the sports. A lot of historical arenas there. And so that's why it's number 3 for me.
My number 3 is San Francisco / Oakland. Obviously they have, they had 2 football teams if you count the Oakland Raiders and who just recently moved to Vegas. So, they were a decent franchise for a long time. And then obviously the 49ers just reached the Super Bowl. They're one of the hotter teams in the league right now. Obviously the Warriors, one of the most dominant basketball teams we've ever seen, 3 championships, and then they also have 2 baseball teams if you count Oakland and San Fran with the Giants and the Oakland A's. Like Grant said, no hockey team, but still, without a hockey team, they still have 5. Well, they did with the Oakland Raiders. I'm still going to count them because they just moved to Vegas. 5 sports teams within the 4 major sports, and they've had good team success. And like Grant said, it's a big market. What player doesn't want to, live in California and represent that? So that's why they're number 3 on my list.
I'm glad you guys mentioned the 49ers because I totally forgot about them when I was talking about San Francisco.
And I forgot about the Athletics. I'm glad you mentioned that, Tyler.
Yeah. Okay, so my number 3, I put Los Angeles. Obviously, the Lakers is probably the team you think of when you think of LA. A lot of success lately. Now they got LeBron and Anthony Davis. Lots of hype around that team right now. But even over time in the NBA, they've been dominant. And then you got the Clippers, who here lately have been making runs. They've got a great system there. Quite a few big name guys. And then as far as baseball goes, they got the Dodgers and the Angels. The Angels aren't the greatest team, but they do have who will go down probably one of the best MLB players ever in Mike Trout. And then the Dodgers, they've been decent. Like Grant said, no championships really, but they've been decent. And also, who doesn't want to live in Cali? Go to LA. All the big stars are there. So, yeah, they're my number 3.
All right. Number 2, I have New York City. I think that when you think of success here recently, you don't think of New York. But as a whole, they have the most championships of all time with 55. If you want to count everybody that's ever been in New York. They actually have 3 hockey teams, which is the most of anybody. Really 2, but you can count the New Jersey Devils. That's basically the same thing. And then you also have the Yankees and the Mets. You also have the Knicks, and you can count the Nets there too because Brooklyn and New York. And then you have the Jets and the Giants. So that's 9 teams in the entire New York City area. And but not a lot of recent success. And I think that when you think of New York, to me, you think of the Yankees. And the Yankees probably the most successful franchise in MLB history. I mean, you just think back of the names that have played for the Yankees. People that don't even watch baseball will know the names of Derek Jeter, Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, Babe Ruth, and they've all played with a Yankee uniform on. And, as of late, like Tyler said earlier, really not a lot of recent success as far as the Jets and the Giants go, as far as the Knicks go, and even the Nets go. And the Mets and Yankees really haven't done much here lately either. The Mets made a couple World Series in the past few years. The Yankees have in the last 20 years. They've won a decent amount in the last 20 years. But as a whole, I just don't think it's enough to take my number one spot. So I'm going to go New York.
Yeah, for my number two, I have Los Angeles. It's got a lot of championships with the Lakers, specifically. And then now you have two football teams with the Chargers and the Rams. You got a couple baseball teams there, like you guys mentioned, a hockey team. You got USC right down the road, which is a legendary program in its own. Obviously, I think a big factor is just, the weather, and that it lures a lot of athletes competing or not competing within that city. They might come in the off season. It's also provides this potential boost for their career post athletics and entertainment, kind of what we're seeing LeBron sort of shift into. And so that's why it's number two on my list.
My number two is Boston. It speaks for itself. All their teams have historically been good, from hockey, to the Boston Red Sox, to obviously the New England Patriots, one of the greatest football teams ever, as much as I hate to say that. And also the Boston Celtics. All of them have had tremendous success, throughout their history. Great fans, not Patriots fans, but overall pretty great fans you see Boston Celtics fans everywhere, unfortunately Patriots fans everywhere, and even Red Sox. So that's why they're so high on my list.
Yeah, I had Boston at number two as well. You guys pretty much covered all of it. One of the best fan bases in all of sports with all their teams. The success with the Patriots, success with the Celtics, and the Boston Bruins. They're just all around a great sports town. So that's who I put in my number two.
At number one, we'll just make it three in a row. I got Boston at number one. When you think of recent success, you got to think of Boston. I mean, you look at it, the Celtics, their last championship was in 2008. That's still not that long ago. And then you think of this, the Patriots, 2019, the Red Sox, 2019 or 2018, and then the Bruins, I don't know the exact year, but it was somewhere between 13 and 18 or something like that. And, and the way I look at it is every player that plays for those franchises always becomes a star based for them playing in Boston. They have a great fan base. And, just to name a few, you think of the Celtics, you got Bill Russell, Larry Bird, Paul Pierce. I think at some point Jason Tatum will be on that list. Red Sox, you got Manny Ramirez, who's one of my favorite baseball players of all time. Mookie Betts, they screwed him over. And Pedro Martinez. And then the Bruins, my first ever hockey player I've really ever been a fan of. I think his name was Tim Thomas or Joe Thomas, one of the Tim Thomas. He was the goalie for the Bruins back in the day where, he was a household name for a hockey player, which is, only a select few number of people in hockey get that honor. You got Sidney Crosby nowadays, but who else can you name that's in hockey if you don't watch hockey? And then that's not even including the best organization, not only in football, but of all time, the New England Patriots. You got Tom Brady, the best quarterback of all time. You got Bill Belichick, the best coach of all time. And then out of all of that, you're winning championships like it's nothing. We have the best dynasty ever in sports. And if you want to call something else, maybe not us, let's just go to the Celtics back in the day when Bill Russell led them to 40,000 championships. That might be the only competition, and they were in Boston too. So you got to put Boston at number one, and not even to mention Fenway Park's iconic, the TD Garden's iconic, and without a doubt, Gillette Stadium, iconic.
With my number one pick, by the way, I just want to say Tom Brady's is in Tampa Bay right now. So, but anyway, with my number one pick, this was a very hard pill to swallow. And honestly, I've changed this list about 20 times now since recording. And it hasn't budged, which I'm surprised it hasn't because I really don't want it to be in this spot. But I know, but it's the right choice. And I just don't want to say it because I had to go with Pittsburgh for my number one spot.
Oh, no.
Number one sports city. Listen. I think we set the fan biases aside. All right. We step back for a minute and we respect the fans that are there. The fact that they, especially the Pittsburgh fans, the Pittsburgh Steelers fans, the fact that they have a presence among the other teams as far as going to the actual stadium. There's nothing more dreadful than going to Lucas Oil Stadium, expecting a nice game, Colts versus the Steelers, and there being about, a few thousand terrible towels there. But honestly, I have to respect it. I mean, the fact that they have that much influence in other cities is incredible. They have other great organizations like the Pirates. May not be great right now, but there's also the Penguins. And so I think they deserve the respect based on fan base and, obviously success as well for my number one spot. Yeah.
Okay, then. I am going to for my number one spot, I'm going to go with Los Angeles. Two basketball teams, two football teams, two baseball teams, and a hockey team. It's hard not to put them on there just because the market size, the fan appeal. I have a question for you guys. When you think of the top basketball players to ever play the game, how many of them played with a Lakers jersey on? Over half.
A lot of them.
Over half. Over half of them. And that's not going to stop. You see, even if it's not the Lakers, all the superstars in the NBA will play for LA at some point in their career. There's LeBron, he went to LA. Anthony Davis now in LA. Paul George now in LA. Kawhi Leonard now in LA. They all want to go to LA. They want that superstar status. The Rams and the Chargers are both, decent NFL franchises. Obviously they have the Angels and the Dodgers as well. So, and a hockey team. So, for me, Los Angeles is number one for the appeal and the market size.
All right, and to end it off, my number one is New York City, or New York, that area. Mainly because of how many teams they have and the market size. Biggest market in all of sports. They've got two baseball teams, two basketball teams. If you want to count the Devils as their third hockey team, and two football teams. Obviously not a ton of success, but they have free agent appeal. They have a huge market. Kevin Durant and Kyrie went to the Nets. Nobody wants to go to the Knicks for some reason, but
good reason. Probably.
Yeah, probably. Garrett Cole, the best pitcher, one of the best pitchers in the MLB right now, just went to the Yankees. They have free agent appeal, and they're the best sports city in my opinion.
I knew this would be one of the best lists, guys. All of us had a different number one, and I think that's awesome. And it was fun to hear everyone's opinions because not everyone really had the same information for each city. We all had our special reasons. So
yeah. For our viewers, I think we should just recap our list just really quickly.
Yeah, sure.
1 to 10, I'll start. I had Los Angeles 1, Boston 2, San Francisco / Oakland 3, Chicago 4, New York 5, Philadelphia 6, Miami 7, Pittsburgh 8, Washington, D.C. 9, and Dallas 10.
All right, I'll go next. For my number one, I had New York City. Number 2, I had Boston. Number 3, I had Los Angeles. Number 4, I had Chicago. Number 5, I had Pittsburgh. Number 6 was San Francisco / Oakland. Number 7 was Houston. Number 8 was Philly. Number 9 was Dallas. And then number 10 was Indianapolis.
All right. Number 1, Boston. Number 2, New York. Number 3, the Bay Area. Number 4, Los Angeles. Number 5, Chicago. Number 6, Detroit. Number 7, Pittsburgh. Number 8, Philadelphia. Number 9, St. Louis. And number 10, Miami.
Yeah, for me, number 1, Pittsburgh. Number 2, Los Angeles. Number 3, Chicago. Number 4, New York. Number 5, Boston. Number 6, Green Bay. Number 7, Cleveland. Number 8, Seattle. Number 9, Nashville. Number 10, Indianapolis. All
right. It's been a fun list, and I've been waiting for a little bit to get on my closing thoughts for today. One just came to me in the last 15 minutes. I got an update on my phone, and this is the coolest thing I think I've ever seen in the history of the NBA. Spencer Dinwiddie just announced that if they can reach a GoFundMe of roughly $24 million, he will sign a one-year deal with the choice of the fans. The fans will vote on a poll, and he will go wherever that is if they reach a goal of $24 million. That is the craziest thing I have ever read in my life.
Well,
but you know what? That is awesome. I think it's awesome.
Is he raising money for something, or I would assume?
I don't think so. I think it's for him.
Okay.
Yeah. So
well,
I'm not completely sure exactly what the details are, but Shams just tweeted this out, so it's real. And I've loved Spencer Dinwiddie before he even became a minor star. And this makes me love him even more. Like that is the coolest thing I've read all day. Second thing, my biggest bet this weekend, if anyone wants to follow along, this will be uploaded way before, but we're hammering Alistair Overeem tomorrow in the UFC fights. It's the main event. He's the favorite. We're hammering him. Great fight. If you watched it, let us know what you think, because I've been loving the UFC lately, mostly because it's the only thing on besides Korean baseball, and soccer starting tomorrow. And the last thing I want to say, usually I say some music. Future's album wasn't that bad. But, hey, me and Matt get to start coaching baseball next week, and I'm excited.
Yes, sir. I'm so excited for that. Oh, my goodness. All right. Hopefully everybody's returning back to some normalcy here. I just went back to my job finally after 2 months off. Like Grant said, we're going to get to start coaching baseball again. I'm super excited for that. And I mean, that's pretty much it. If you need something to watch on TV still, since there's no live sports right now, the 2K League is still on ESPN2. But other than that, stay safe, everyone. Appreciate you listening every week. That's all I got.
Yeah, definitely to the listeners out there, share if you enjoy our show, and you're a regular listener, tell your mom, your dad, your brother, sister, friends, family. Have your dog and cat along if you want to. This sort of help us, get the word out on this show and keep us growing, keep us moving along. We appreciate you listening. Definitely stay safe, as especially here in Indiana, things start to open up a little more. Grant and I went to our first restaurant today.
Fire.
Like the experience. It's good to be back, but we have to be mindful of people around us and keeping them safe and keeping ourselves safe. So just be mindful of that. So that's what I got.
Yeah. Thanks for watching and listening, and follow us on all of our social medias and share our content with everyone you know.
Oh, yeah,
hope everyone enjoyed.
We will be having we'll be switching up the recording schedule a little bit up here soon. So just stay tuned for that as well.
Yep.
Hopefully 2 shows a week now. We never know. But that might be the plan. We'll see where it goes. But if you do watch every week, we do appreciate it. We didn't really expect this to be anything, and we're getting a decent amount of views each week. So it's really awesome to see. So I hope everyone has a great rest of your night or day whenever you watch this, and we hope to see you next week. Adios, amigos.